One of the things we love to do more than anything else in my live streams is to speculate over what we're getting in Iceborne. So today I'm going to be sharing my top 5 picks for video game collaborations that I think will actually work in Iceborne. I'll talk both about the weapons I want to see added to the game from the other game, as well as the monsters that should be coming from the other games as well. Let's get started. I kind of want to get out one of the goofiest possibilities first, just because it seems so unrealistic. I think the odds of this collaboration actually is pretty small. On the other hand, I also think it could be surprisingly satisfying and fun for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I'm talking about a Minecraft collaboration, believe it or not. I think one of the main reasons this would be such a funny collaboration is because I badly want to use a diamond pickaxe hammer, which would be such a hilarious and surprisingly accurate hammer to add to Iceborne, since the big bang attack animation of a hammer could be perceived as someone swinging a pickaxe. Don't forget there's also a bow in Minecraft, so we could also have a Minecraft bow in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. The other surprising reason this collaboration could work so easily is because Capcom could create a fightable version of the Ender Dragon, which would absolutely blow everyone's minds away, I'm sure. Minecraft continues to enjoy a lot of popularity somehow. I think there's kind of a remember Minecraft meme renaissance going on, and this is the kind of positive, trending attention that I imagine Capcom is trying to accomplish or tap into with this collaborations in the first place. On the other hand, besides being an extremely goofy option for a collab, the other and probably larger problem I see is that Microsoft owns Minecraft. So the exclusives bureaucracy could end up making this impossible for business reasons. I say that because Capcom just gave the Iceborne beta exclusivity to Sony, so I imagine Sony would tell Capcom, hey, let's not do a collab with Microsoft on Minecraft, which would be a really sad reason not to have any possibly very fun crossover. Alright, next I want to share my top choice in this list. Like many of you, I would love to see a Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Sekiro crossover. You guys probably know I'm a big fan of FromSoft's work, and they share at least a bit of a similarity with Monster Hunter in terms of both games being a third-person perspective RPG, using melee weapons, and rewarding the player for good timing and the ability to roll through attacks. Okay, so they're not the same game, they have some similarities though. Not only that, but FromSoft's games are loaded with terrific, terrifying monsters that could be ported right over to Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Personally, my top choice would be Midir from Dark Souls 3 as a type of Elder Dragon. Also from Dark Souls, I love the way many of the Ultra Great Swords look. I mean, there's really so much to pull from both Bloodborne and Dark Souls that is really even not hard to imagine this crossover. Just imagine like the Moonlight Greatsword in Iceborne, for example. It just works, you know, it looks really cool. Sadly, I think only a Sekiro crossover would make sense, because FromSoft is probably going to launch some DLC for that title, and they'll be looking to advertise it. In that case, I'm going to recommend the Guardian 8 fight. I think he visually would look really good in a cold environment, and after you defeat him, you should be able to craft the Immortal Blade longsword. It's also worth pointing out that the Sekiro prosthetic actually fits in really easily with how the slinger works in Monster Hunter World, including the way you can grapple onto wedge beetles. So it's actually surprisingly similar. The next collaboration in this list shouldn't surprise you. I think a second Final Fantasy collaboration could be had in celebration of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Capcom already has a good relationship with Square Enix after the release of the Behemoth in Monster Hunter World, which I thought was actually a big win. I also thought Behemoth, he was easily one of the best fights in the whole game, right? So this is why I'm saying they have a good relationship. It would be easier for Capcom to make this collaboration because they already have some of the assets for making it as well, like the Cactuars, for example. This time, we should be giving Cloudbuster's Greatsword, but there's actually all kinds of options for what weapons we could get, what armor we could get, and what monsters could be added. For example, maybe we could have Chocobo Tail Raiders as mounts, that'd be cool, and Bahamut as an enemy. So if Capcom announced a second Final Fantasy collaboration, I wouldn't be surprised by this at all. At this point in the video, I want to mention that I did consider Pokemon Sword and Shield as a potential collaboration with Monster Hunter World, literally just because Sword and Shield is in the title of the next Pokemon entry, right? We have Sword and Shield as a weapon class, they have it as the name of their next series. However, the problem is that Iceborne isn't playable on a Nintendo console. So similar to the exclusives bureaucracy I mentioned surrounding a possible Minecraft crossover, I just don't see this happening without Nintendo having a larger stake in Monster Hunter's success. It's a real pity, but very likely we won't see any Nintendo collaborations. I could be wrong, I'd like to be wrong, we'll have to see though. moving on to the fourth collaboration on this list, I could totally see a Borderlands crossover working for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. We could be given a Claptrap Palico armor, and there's obviously a near endless number of options for like a heavy bowgun or a light bowgun, right, to be added to the game. The only question I would have is, what would we fight? And I imagine it would have to be like a new monster from the upcoming Borderlands 3 title, so I have kind of less to say about this collaboration just because I'm sure it would be a fight with something we haven't seen before. Just imagine a siege-like fight where we get randomized heavy bowguns and light bowguns the same way it works in Borderlands. That would actually be very cool. Probably the biggest problem to this collaboration would be, I suspect Borderlands 3 and Capcom Monster Hunter World kind of see themselves as rivals a little bit. These are both games that spend a lot of resources building a good PvE fighting environment, and there's a loot kind of cycle where you fight the monster over and over again and you get cooler loot. So the main problem I see is they actually clash with each other a little bit. Okay, so when you're talking about Sekiro, when you're talking about Minecraft, maybe Final Fantasy, they don't quite clash as much personally, but I see Borderlands and Monster Hunter directly competing with each other. So that's the main problem I see. And finally, the last collaboration on my list is going to be Bethesda's Elder Scrolls. Of course, the reason this makes the list is because it's a third-party developer again, and Elder Scrolls is rich with interesting monsters, dragons, and weapons. Not only would Capcom be able to take a very conservative approach with what it gets added to the game, it can be as simple as like a bow and a dragon, but Capcom could go further and make it as interesting as adding something like a magic staff and a fight with a giant mechanical dwarven spider. So purely from a game mechanics point of view, Capcom won't have any trouble with adding content from the Elder Scrolls universe. Additionally, we'll finally get to add sneak to the crouch mechanic in Monster Hunter, which you know you all want, but you didn't realize you wanted it. I think Bethesda would be open to this collaboration because of course it's going to be releasing the next iteration of Elder Scrolls in probably a year. Not to mention, it's also got an ongoing Elder Scrolls online game MMORPG. So there's kind of a very good incentive for Elder Scrolls Bethesda to work with Capcom. And that's the end of the list. Let me know which crossovers you'd like to see with Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and which crossovers you think will actually occur. There's a very difference. Here's what we want, here's what they would actually reasonably do. My number one choice is anything from FromSoft, or with FromSoft I should say, but I would be both shocked and pleasantly surprised by Minecraft. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.